Sell your Tesla stock. That's coming from an insider who knows Elon Musk very, very well. He had a lot of things to share. I want to go over with you guys. This is Dr. Philip Lowe, the chairman, CEO, and founder of NeuroVigil. And this is what he writes. He says, I have known Elon Musk at a deep level for 14 years, well before he was a household name. We used to text frequently. He would come to my birthday party, invite me to his parties. He would tell me everything about his women problems. As sons of highly accomplished men who married Venuses, were violent and lost their fortunes, and who were bullied in high school. We had a number of things in common most people cannot relate to. We could hang out late in Los Angeles. He would visit my San Diego lab. He invested in my company. Elon is not a Nazi per se. He is something much better or much worse, depending on how you look at it. Nazis believed that an entire race was above everyone else. Elon believes he is above everyone else. He used to think he worked on the most important problems. When I met him, he did not presume to be a technical person. He would be the first to say that he lacked the expertise to understand certain data. That happened later. Now he believes he has all the solutions. And I'm going to go over more of this, but I just want you to let this sink in again. This is someone who knows Elon Musk, and the first thing when I think about this is like, this just sounds like a real depiction of who he is. I've read a lot of what people said of Elon Musk. If you don't know, he and I went to the same school. I don't know Elon personally, but I know a lot of people who know him, and this sort of corroborates a lot of stuff that I've heard. I'll just say this. There's people out there who worship Elon. They think he's a god. They think he knows everything, etc. And I just want you to hear it from insiders, like people who really know him well. I mean, this guy said he's known him for 14 years of what they say. It's a fascinating look. And we have to talk about this stuff because Elon has so much influence in this world, be it in multiple countries, be it with his multiple companies, and also too, he bought the US presidency. So you want to have a sense of like, who is this dude? This is more of what Philip has to say, talking about Elon. He says, all his talk about getting to Mars to, quote, maintain the light of consciousness, or about, quote, free speech absolutism is actually BS, right? Calling out Elon, BS. Elon knowingly feeds people to manipulate them, right? Everything Elon does is about acquiring and consolidating power. That is why he likes far-right parties, because they are easier to control. That is also why he gave himself $56 billion, which he could have gone to people who are actually doing the work and innovations he is taking credit for at Tesla. His lust for power is also why he did an XAI and Neuralink. We've talked about these companies on the channel, so XAI is like his AI thing. Neuralink is that basically chip in your brain thing that Elon's doing. It says here, he did these things to attempt to compete with OpenAI and NeuroVigil, right? So that would be Mr. Lowe's, or Dr. Lowe's, I should say, company, respectively, despite being affiliated with them. Unlike Tesla and Twitter, he was unable, unlike Tesla and Twitter, he was unable to conquer those companies and tried to create rivals. I fired him with cause in December 2021 when he tried to undermine NV. He's talking about Neuralink, Neuralink, I should say, the name of his company. Elon did too. Nazi salutes. He also says, my point, talking about Elon Musk, is that he is transactional rather than ideological. That being said, I am not defending him or his actions, just explaining them and confirming that he did in fact do 2 Nazi salutes. If anyone had doubts or believed the doctored footage of Taylor Swift, the same thing normalized what Elon did. 3, at some point, it matters to a few people if one is a Nazi or if one acts like one. My father was a Holocaust survivor. 32 out of 35 of his family members were murdered by Nazis. My mother's grandparents were murdered in Auschwitz. 4, after Elon tried to manipulate NV's stock in 2021, I fired him with cause, and he was unable to exercise his stock options. In the aftermath of the Nazi salutes, I told him and his wealth manager to F off. Any remaining friendship between us ended with the Nazi salutes. He is blocked on my end, and I'm pretty sure I am blocked on his. I did not share what he told me in confidence. I just happen to know him extremely well. The person, the aspirations, and the Musk mask, which is an interesting way to describe Musk, right? The Musk mask. I know who I am. I have no desire to be famous and give exceedingly few media interviews. I prefer to work in obscurity and let the work speak for itself. I am certainly not envious and would definitely not want Elon's life, including living in a bubble, having to make outlandish claim after another and manipulate the public, elections and governments to shore up my stock and prevent the bubble from bursting, right? This sort of thing that I've described to you guys so many times on the channel. Philip's saying the same thing. Basically, Elon's always hyping up some whatever product. It's going to come next year. It's going to come next year. Because remember, his whole wealth is based on the value of the stock, which is based on hype, which is basically a house of cards. And Elon borrows money, right? Lives off lines of credit based on all this hype. And you can see that the bubble's bursting. Even Philip's calling it out here. Philip also says here, unlike Elon, I'm an actual scientist and inventor. I am not pretending to be someone I am not. Like a fellow who got his BA in econ at 26, talking about Elon, and sort of implying also, you know, he maybe got a degree in economics, actually finished it late, right? 26 is a bit late. And says, and all of a sudden pretend to be an expert in mechanical engineering, chemistry, rocket science, neuroscience, and AI, and keeping the people actually doing the work hidden and paying people to play online games in his name to appear smart and feed his so-called, quote, super genius personality cult. The imperator has no clothes. And I mean, Philip's really doing an excellent job of, you know, this is an inside look of you know, who Elon is from someone who really knows him really, really well. Basically, Elon's a fraud. And, you know, for people who worship Elon, you need to hear these kind of things, right? You need to hear the truth about this stuff. Moreover, it says, I am very disappointed in what happened to someone I had a lot of deep admiration for. And the first person to find out about my concerns about his behavior was always him. This goes on. He's talking about how Elon has betrayed, you know, his friends over at Google, Sergey. And there's a more point I want to read too. It says, I will not be silent. You should not be either. I am a sovereign individual and so are you. I stood up to bullies and am stepping out of the dark to do it again, right? So again, somebody who knows Elon is, you gotta say something. And I think a lot more people are gonna be saying something. This is what he suggests. Stop working for him and being exploited by him. Sell your Tesla and dump your Tesla stock. Nikola Tesla was a great and creative, courageous man who led with ethics and by example, and he would not have wanted his good name to be used by him, talking about Elon, and would agree with my principled stance. So again, his advice is stop working for him and being exploited by him, sell your Tesla and dump your Tesla stock. Sign off on of X, which is boosting far-right propaganda of all your Starlink as well, right? Basically boycott him. You guys know we've been talking about this, and for many people out there, there's a debate, you know, is it given this type of salute or that type of salute, etc. But you have to put it all in the full context, and it carries a different light when you hear sort of what insiders have to say about it. And listen to the description of sort of why he thinks like Elon did it. It says here, number one, he was concerned that the, quote, Nazi wing of the MAGA movement under the influence of Steve Bannon would drive him away from Trump, somewhere in the Eisenhower Executive Office building rather than in the West Wing, which is where he wants to be. He was already feeling raw over the fact that Trump did not follow his recommendation for Treasury Secretary, and the Senate also did not pick his first choice, right? So it's interesting hearing it from him. And if you guys don't know, when Trump was picking the cabinet member picks, like Musk was like saying the picks that he wanted, right? In public on Twitter, etc., which is a little bit odd, especially if you're working together. You just don't want to publicly say stuff. Usually this stuff is all behind closed doors. That's where Elon pisses off a lot of people. Just think of it this way, like imagine you're, you know, having a birthday party, just for example. You can only invite 10 people to your party, and you know you're arguing like with your friend, like who are you gonna invite, who you're not gonna invite, and then you agreed, say, okay, we're just gonna decide, we're gonna keep it, you know, our mouth shut until we decide to announce who's on the list. But if you have some guy just like announcing stuff publicly that you don't really go along with, I'm sure you guys can see this Elon's the kind of person you don't want to do business with, unless it's even saying here regarding this. We're talking about like really important stuff, not just birthday parties, but treasury secretaries and stuff like that. Also says here, number 2, talking about Elon, he was upset that he had to go to Israel and Auschwitz to make up for agreeing with Nazi sympathizer online and wanted to reclaim his, quote, power, just like when he told advertisers to go F themselves. This has nothing to do with Asperger's. That's interesting, right? So talking about Elon just trying to save face. Number 3, there are some Jews he actually hates. That's Elon. Sam Altman is amongst them. So that's the CEO of OpenAI. And Elon has sued Sam and OpenAI 5 times now. They're not friends. Sam publicly, though, tries to pretend like he's still friends with Elon. They definitely know each other. And I'll say this. We've covered this kind of stuff before, to where we've read emails from OpenAI and Elon. And the funny thing is, like, Elon exposed themselves in those emails. If you want to find those, you can, but I'll just tell you the basic gist of it. Is like, in the emails, the other side seems like pretty reasonable, and then Elon just seems kind of like a crazy person. And he will have these emotional outbursts in his emails, and then come back and apologize, and then say something again, or go back on his word. Elon is frankly imbalanced, I don't know what to say, but just, like bipolar kind of person. Here's number 4, talking about, whether or not why Elon gave the 2 Nazi salutes. 4, he enjoys a good thrill, and knew exactly what he was doing. 5, his narcissistic self was hoping the audience would reflect his abject gesture back to him, thereby showing complete control and dominion over it, and increasing his leverage over Trump. That did not happen. Bottom line, Elon is not a Nazi, but he did give 2 Nazi salutes, which is completely unacceptable. If you want to read more of this post, you can. I'll just say this. I've read a bit more of it. Dr. Philip Lowe goes into more of sort of this relationship with Elon, wrote emails to Elon to basically, how can I say that, with Elon's behavior, is like, you just got to go F yourself, that kind of stuff. He doesn't consider Elon a friend now, especially what happened with the whole Nazi salute thing. And Philip also shared a story where it was something like 32 out of 35 people in his family had died in the Holocaust. His dad is a Holocaust survivor, and I'm just sharing this because it feels all more real when you understand like the stuff that Elon's doing. Yeah, I know like for some people they think it's all funny and a joke, but it's not. When you're talking about affiliating and in other videos I don't even say the name of that said party, the Nazi party, because I just certain things I just don't think is, how can I say, we should have to give no honor to these kind of people. We should remember the history, but take it all very seriously. And to Elon, this is like all a joke and a way to manipulate people. That's sort of what he does. And I'll give you an example. You can go over to his platform, and Elon's like just tweeting out an hour ago that he tweets out an image here, and he's trying to make the case like, oh, the media is just misportraying things. I didn't really do that, but I think unfortunately we live in a world where there's some people who what's the right word to say it, like need like a father figure. That's what some people have described why Elon's appealing to so many masses, or they need like a messiah figure to come rescue them, that kind of thing. And it is time where we are right now, when the economies around the world are going poorly. I'll give you examples. So in Germany, we just talked about in a prior video, where essentially what's going on is German manufacturing struggling, their export-based economy, meaning like, they want to sell goods to countries around the world, but they're facing fierce competition from China. So for example, these days I can buy a Chinese car that's, pretty inexpensive and relatively very good. Same way I can buy, cars from Japan or Korea. And the Chinese one is a big one because, in the past, Germans could sell products to, the Chinese market. And these days it's not a thing anymore, right? Maybe local Chinese want to buy their cars, they're coming in cheaper, etc. Or maybe the Germans would want to sell cars to, say, the American market. And now Trump is threatening tariffs, right? So it's creating a lot of economies out of whack. People are being laid off in Germany. I'm using the example of Germany because what happens is when you get these downturns, and you could talk about, say, downturns with Trumps and the MAGAs, there's all these basically people who lose their jobs in the factory, and they're looking for someone to blame. And someone like a Trump, someone like an Elon will encourage people to be like, oh, you blame the minorities in your country, or blame the trans and the gay people. That's sort of what they do. And unfortunately, we've seen this kind of stuff before. When you hear from Dr. Philip Lowe and express his opinion, he's basically saying Elon's just manipulating you, right? He goes to those right-wing parties, the right, leaning people because they're easy to manipulate, and also, just before they're frank, that they're down on their luck and they need someone to, sort of give them a figure to blame, a group of people to blame, and they want someone to save them. And I, I try to come from these kind of conversations from a human perspective, right? I can understand why people like Elon, etc. More what Philip talks about in his post is like, Elon doesn't do patents at his company because if they did, then Elon's name wouldn't be on the patents, and it would expose him as he doesn't invent anything, and that he'd have to put all his employees' names on there. This is the kind of person Elon is, though, is he's always looking to take credit from other people. For example, some people think that Elon founded Tesla. It's just not the case. He joined late. He brought in some money, which is true, right? Elon's good at hype, bringing in money. He brought in some money. A couple other guys found it, and then what would happen is whenever the press would call, if Elon wasn't like on the photo of the article, right, with the original founders, right, or Elon wasn't featured in the interview, he would call the other people like, why am I not in the article, why am I not featured, etc. And it's kind of interesting because Philip describes himself like talking about his own personal how can I say goals in life, to where Philip is as he describes himself, as a self-made multi-billionaire. And he also says he has an army of lawyers, so he's not afraid of Elon, right? He can say whatever he wants, like he's just saying, hey, this is my experience with Elon, etc. But for him, he doesn't, feel the need to be in front of the cameras all the time, or buy a social media platform. Not everyone wants to be Elon. Not everyone wants that kind of life. And I've pointed this out so many times on the channel, guys. Yes, money is important. It is. I won't lie. It's money important. You need to put food on the table, a place to live, and stuff like that. But it's not the end all be all. And this Philip Philip Lowe, Dr. Philip Lowe, he's not the first person that's going to come out and speak against Elon. There's going to be more. We had another person that was recently, it was the podcaster person, was saying the same kind of stuff. I knew Elon when he was young. It's not the same person that he is today. And I thought the Philip description of where, like, in the past, Elon would admit that, hey, I don't know everything, right? And Philip also described Elon as being like an econ major, like economics major, and then basically implies that now he's, Elon pretends to be like this, brilliant scientist slash engineer, which is just not the case. I've said it several times. It's funny, when I had we did the earnings. Actually, it was the not the earnings call. It was the presentation of the robotaxi and then the robot. And I had a friend of mine who's a professor, Kyle. If you guys saw that stream, you know what I'm talking about. Who's a professor of AI. Like like he's an expert in that field. And I had to come on and we watched the presentation together. And the funny thing is, the first thing I asked him, I was like, "What's your opinion, Elon?" And the guy's like, my friend was like, Elon's a total fraud. and a lot of people say that are experts in, say, whatever various fields. And I say this all the time on the channel, guys. I'll tell you when I know something. I'll tell you when I don't know something. Right? I'll ask for people for opinions because no one knows everything. They just don't. It's just not. It's not humanly possible to know everything. And one of the things that is important in this life is to be humble. One of the things that is really, really negative, though, with someone like an Elon is he's not humble, right? He's got this crazy hubris, and he has this like legion of cult followers that kind of feed into that, and they believe that he's created everything all by himself, and he's like this, crazy god, etc. And I think what we're seeing with sort of, again, the intersection between markets, politics, pop culture, the downturn in the economy, right? These kind of things of where Elon's using his influence, in my opinion, negative ways. And Philip actually recommends selling Tesla stock in his post. So I just wanted to go over a bit of it just so you guys can kind of see what someone from the inside says. I do appreciate your time, and I'll catch you next video.